This is an anime that came out last season, and I really enjoyed watching it. Like most of the anime I like, this one is about traveling to another world, but this one has that special sauce that makes it so good to watch. In this story, our hero is reincarnated in a new futuristic world, and there he becomes the heir to an entire domain. And to make things more interesting, on his 5th birthday, his mother gives him a special gift, but he's confused when he opens it, because he doesn't know what the item is for. So his mother reveals that he's going to get a super robot with a very powerful artificial intelligence, and now all he can do is customize every part of his eye's body the way he wants. He realizes that he can even customize certain functions, something a normal 5-year-old wouldn't do. He even hesitates for a moment, but his mother warns him that if he doesn't choose something, his AI maid will be left with those missing parts. So he decides to choose everything very carefully, so that he doesn't regret it in the future. Then his father arrives and presents him with the whole family estate, which surprises our hero, and he realizes that he's going to be a new count. His father says that they will live a quiet life on the Imperial planet, and when he leaves, the whole domain will be Lindros. But in return, he asks his son to send him a regular allowance. He agrees to his parents' condition, and they leave after he signs the contract, telling him that his robot will soon arrive to take care of him. Our hero is very happy with his new life, as he now has everything he ever wanted. However, due to some past events, he wants to become an evil lord and exploit his people. It is at this point that we discover that he has suffered greatly in his previous life. He discovered that his wife was cheating on him with his boss. To make matters worse, he discovered that his own daughter was not his daughter by blood. And after so many discoveries, he was wrongly accused of stealing the company's money. Betrayed and riddled with debt, his health deteriorated rapidly, and when he was on his deathbed about to die, a man called Yuja appeared, asking if he would let his wife and his boss go out pony together. At that moment, he says he wants revenge, and feeling his strong emotions makes Yuja happy. It's at this point that he asks for a second chance, where he can live for himself, and Yuja says he's there to reincarnate him in another world. He shows him a few options, and the betrayed Japanese worker chooses to live in a world with robots and spaceships, because these are themes he loves, both in anime and video games. When he finally signs the contract, Yuja wishes him good luck, and so our Japanese worker leaves for another world, determined to put his own happiness first in this new life. He thanks Yuja for the second chance, but not everything is as easy as it seems, because at that moment we see Yuja close to his body, saying that unlucky people like this Japanese worker are very common, and he loves to have fun with them. Then he looks at our hero's old wife who has gone to another world, and she is his next diversion. While she eats with her new prey, she thinks about the years she wasted on her husband. But suddenly the police arrive, revealing that they have found evidence of the boss stealing money from the company. The man she thought would become her husband and support her life of luxury is arrested in front of her, and she despairs, wondering who will take care of her now. It is at this point that Yuja tells her that she will never experience happiness again, because the man who loved her is already dead. Yuja then goes back to the apartment of the man he reincarnated, and he comments that when this man realizes he has been betrayed again, this time by a god, it will be too late. And Yuja is very happy with his new acquisition, because he believes that the worker he reincarnated in the other world will suffer even more, and Yuja is looking forward to seeing his suffering in the next life, because this guide is actually a god who feeds on negative feelings. However, what Yuja didn't expect was that the spirit of the dog that is this Japanese worker's only friend would follow him into the next world. Now we see our Japanese worker, who is called Lion, receiving his robot maid, and his butler called Brian reveals that only Lion can open this package, as her package uses a biometric approval system. Lion unlocks it, and is happy to see his robot maid, who introduces herself as Maggie. Brian says that she will be his personal assistant, and will serve him 24 hours a day, except during a weekly maintenance that takes place every 2 weeks. Lion quickly checks the quality of her construction, and notices how well made she is, and this somewhat makes Brian uncomfortable. Lion then takes his maid to a games room, and Brian notices that Lion is acting very adult for his age, and in response, Lion asks him not to worry, because even though he's a child, he has the mind of a 36-year-old. But Brian reminds him that he's still a child, and Maggie explains that an adult age in the Empire is about 50, since people in this world live from 500 to 1,000 years. Lion comes to the conclusion that as his life will be long in this world, he'll have plenty of time to do whatever he wants, and Brian asks him not to spend so much time with this robot, as everyone in the Empire hates artificial intelligences, and if anyone sees him too close to one, some bad rumors could start to spread. Lion wants to know more about this, so Brian reveals that humanity was almost wiped out by artificial intelligences, but a brave group of people fought to save humanity and created the Empire. It's at this point that Lion wonders why his mother hates a robot, and Brian hesitates to answer. But Lion insists on knowing the truth, so Brian reveals that his parents abandoned him because his family is saddled with huge debts. He explains that Lion's great-grandfather brought prosperity to the domain, but his successors haven't followed in his footsteps, and it's at this point that Lion wonders what will happen to his dreams and becomes an evil lord. Then, giving even more context to everything, Brian reveals that they have even lost the right to exploit the resources of the border planets, and this has greatly reduced tax collection, since the industries can't make a profit. Lion realizes that he has no way of paying off the debt, and that things will only get worse from now on, and this leaves him very disappointed. Meanwhile, the people of the planet Lion rules are trying to understand how a 5-year-old boy became a lord. They're afraid that Lion will raise taxes even more, but the bar owner says he hopes he'll be a good person. Returning to Lion, he asks Brian if his parents only had him so that he could inherit their debts, and Brian says that unfortunately that's the truth. However, for Lion, this problem can still be solved. He says that Brian and Amagi are different from his parents, and proposes that they work together. However, Amagi refuses the idea, and says that her only job is to serve him. But Lion says that she can't opt out of this job so easily, since he needs her so much. Amagi promises to always accompany him, and this makes Lion very happy. He then decides to create 3 rules that Amagi must follow. In our own world, we have some rules for the royals, but he decides to change them a bit before passing them on to Amagi, because he doesn't care about anyone but himself. The first rule is that she must never hurt her master or let him get hurt. The second rule states that she must always follow his orders, except when those orders go against the first rule, and the last rule asks her to preserve her own existence as much as possible. After giving her these rules, Lion asks her for suggestions on how to improve his territory. She then reveals that although her ideas as an artificial intelligence go against some of the Empire's beliefs, she is able to help it administer its territory. Lion thinks this is great, as he doesn't understand anything about running a territory, so she will take care of all the bureaucracy instead of him. She says she can do that, but she also suggests that he use an educational capsule, capable of implanting 10 years of learning in just 6 months, and also strengthening his body. He's worried that he won't know what's happening to his territory while he's away, but Amagi can manage everything for him in the meantime. Brian quickly says that this is a bad idea, as he believes the Empire won't accept an AI in charge, but Amagi points out that there's no rule against it. With everything settled, Lion orders Brian to prepare the learning pod, and he also leaves Amagi in charge while she's away. Before entering the capsule, Lion asks Amagi if she feels emotions, and she replies that she doesn't really understand what emotions are, but tells him that when he suggested that they form a team, her system overloaded with information. Then, while the capsule is activated, he asks her to take care of things while he's away, and soon after, he goes into his deep sleep. 6 months pass, and when the capsule finally opens, Amagi welcomes Lion back, and warns him that he has been asleep for 2 years, all so that he could gain a lot more strength and a lot more knowledge, and he is indeed stronger. However, he will need to undergo rehabilitation to adapt to his more developed body. He quickly accepts, and soon afterwards, Amagi informs him about the current economic situation of his territory, making him happy to see that she is doing a great job managing it, but he is still far from paying off all his debts. Lion wants to explore the surrounding area, so Amagi takes him to the army spaceport, leaving him impressed. She then shows him the base of her giant robots, and Lion is excited to pilot one of them, so she provides him with everything he needs and explains that his basic movements are automatic and only require his imagination. He learns to move quickly and asks to test his skills in combat, so she organizes a mock fight. He faces a captain called Mashita, but realizes that the man is underestimating him, and asks Mashita to take the fight seriously. Lion attacks again, but is quickly disarmed and knocked down by Mashita, surprised at his defeat. Amagi explains that movements depend on mental visualization, and more experienced fighters like Mashita have a great advantage. Now aware of what he lacks, Lion asks Brian to find a combat teacher, but Brian tries to convince him that he doesn't need one. However, Lion insists, as he was treated very badly in his previous life, so he believes he needs to get stronger to become a powerful lord. A while later, Lion meets Yasushi, who is the master of the Path of Light. He is a teacher reminiscent of an ancient samurai, and Amagi suspects that Yasushi is a fake. But Lion believes that he is a true warrior who has isolated himself to train and become stronger. They ask for a demonstration of his skills, so Yasushi positions himself between some wooden columns and explains a little about his secret technique, the Path of Lightning. He says he's only going to use his ability once, and asks Lion to pay attention. Lion quickly asks Amagi to record everything, and when Yasushi pulls out his sword, all the wooden logs are cut, and this leaves Lion fascinated. And when he asks Amagi what she thought of everything, she says that she couldn't record any of Yasushi's movements, even slowing down the video a lot. And this makes Lion believe that Yasushi is very impressive, so Lion accepts Yasushi as his master. But we discover that in fact Yasushi had already cut those logs before, and he only pretended to be using a special technique in order to secure an easy job. And this makes Gui very happy, as it will ensure great unhappiness for Lion. Meanwhile, a blonde noblewoman goes to negotiate peace with the pirates, but their leader, Goes, mocks her for coming alone. Christiana warns him that the Alliance fleet is ready to take action if he tries anything, but she receives a warning that the pirates have surrounded her planet. She wonders how this happened, and then Goes reveals that there are people in the Alliance who are not loyal to her, and who actually hate her country. It's at this moment that she realizes that her own escort fleet is pointing their guns in the direction of her ship. She can't believe her eyes, and the Goes reveals that she paid them to betray her. Not only that, but if she wants to protect her home planet, she'll have to obey him. After that, we have a 3-year time skip, and we see that since Lion started his training, he still hasn't managed to master his master's technique. Magic then suggests that he continue practicing the basics, but he insists on learning the special technique. When evening comes, we see that Yasushi is quietly reading the manga in his room. He's still amazed that he makes so much money doing such a simple job, and his biggest dream is for everything to stay that way. But Lion arrives unexpectedly in his room, so he quickly hides his manga and gets serious. Lion insists that he wants to learn the secret technique, but Yasushi threatens to end his training and reminds Lion again that he had promised to show him the technique only once. Yasushi pretends to be very angry, and Lion immediately apologizes and leaves the room. Yasushi is relieved that he's gone, as he has no idea how to teach something he doesn't know himself. Meanwhile, we see that it's been a long time since Christiana was taken prisoner by the Goa's pirates. She asks what Goa's plans are, and he tells her that he has prepared a special place for her. She is a little confused, until suddenly he orders his fleet to head for her planet. The girl desperately begs him to stop, but the Goa's gives the command to fire, and she can only watch as her entire planet is destroyed. On Lion's planet, he is very upset with himself for not having managed to learn Saize's special technique yet. Amagi hands him a monthly report, with graphs showing the economic situation of his empire. She tells him that his debts are still the same, but production and sales are increasing, and this makes Lion happy. However, she also notices that some programs, such as social assistance, are not growing as they should. Lion examines the financial reports and finds problems, so he immediately calls the person responsible. Lion accuses the man of corruption, saying that she discovered his false invoices and suspicious supplier changes. The man tries to defend himself, but Amagi reveals that there is an open case against him, proving that he managed to unfairly blame a subordinate, and that same subordinate was executed without any proof. This makes Lion angry, as he remembers the suffering he had in his past life, so he loses patience and executes the corrupt man immediately. He then orders Amagi to execute all the corrupt nobles, but she asks him to calm down. It's only then that Lion realizes that this is the first time he's killed someone. He's a bit shaken and can't let go of his sword, so Amagi helps him and explains that if they eliminate all the corrupt, they won't have anyone to do the job. Amagi suggests that they use artificial intelligence androids to manage everything, and he agrees, saying that he doesn't care about things like reputation. Now in the same old bar, we see everyone commenting on how Lion has punished the corrupt officials and increased the time of compulsory education on their planet from 3 to 6 years. They are also happy with the progress of the business, and even though they don't want to admit it, they are impressed with everything the new lord has achieved in just 5 years. Now we see that Lion wants to evaluate his progress, as he has already mastered the basics of sword fighting, but Yasushi warns him that ordinary equipment will limit his potential, and Lion gets it all wrong. For him, the automatic movements of a robot will undermine everything he has learned, so he asks Mashita if there is an option with more manual control. Mashita then comments on a personal unit that was piloted by his great-grandfather, and going back in time, we see Yasushi looking for something to steal from the warehouse, as he's afraid of losing his job now that Lion knows the basics. He finds an abandoned robot and has an incredible idea. He can use this machine to trick Lion and prolong his employment. Back in the present, Lion asks Brian to fix the Avadia mobile knight. Brian is confused by his master's insistence on using such a complex manual model, and he also doesn't understand why Lion has been practicing movements in the air for days. Lion explains that he is trying to replicate his master's secret technique, and he is determined to practice until he can use it. Amagi checks Avadia and realizes that Yasushi is not the true master of the sword, but she promises to make an effort to restore this robot, since Lion insists on using it. The next day, Lion and Amagi meet Niaz, who is an engineer at the weapons factory. She has been called in to repair the Avadia, and when she realizes that Amagi is an artificial intelligence android, Niaz is completely excited by her advanced technology, and Lion believed that she wouldn't like Amagi. They take him to the Avadia, and Lion asks if he can fix it, but Niaz says that the machine is almost beyond repair, and suggests that he get a new model. Even so, Lion insists on using it, so she warns him that the repairs will be expensive, since this model is so old that there are no parts available. But he doesn't worry about the cost, and says he wants something flawless that no one can beat. This gets Niaz very excited, and she quickly accepts his proposal. He asks her to add special moves, like a rocket punch, but she's confused, so he explains that the rocket punch is a stylish move where your master's fist shoots out like a rocket. Yasushi arrives soon after, and immediately falls in love with Niaz. But when he tries to get her attention, she doesn't even notice him, because she's too focused on talking to Lion about the rocket punch. She agrees to fulfill Lion's request, and this makes Yasushi jealous, because the girl he has just fallen in love with prefers to talk only to Lion. In revenge, Yasushi forces Lion to do some heavy training, where he has to balance on a log while Yasushi throws tennis balls at him. Lion complains that it's hard to keep his balance with the blindfold on, and that his sword is too heavy, but Yasushi laughs and says he needs to use all his senses. At the same time, we see Goa's warning Christiana that he is going to take her to his private island where his treasures are kept, and it is there that he will add her to his collection. He then shows her his pet, but a scientist realizes it's dead, so they throw it into space. Goas then reveals that Christiana will be his new replacement, and he already has an idea of what to do with her. He says he'll tear out her eyes and implant them in her hand, so she can watch her body being deformed. On the other side of the screen, we see that the inhabitants of Lion's planet are happy with the economic growth, and someone comments that everything is better than in his grandfather's time. Everyone is pleased with the planet's evolution, and again comments that Lion is doing a great job. We now see that Niaz has completed the restoration of the Arvid and presents it to Lion, who praises her work highly. She then takes him to the cockpit to teach him how the robot works, and the robot scans his body, registering him as its official pilot and making him the only one capable of operating it. However, when Lion loses control, the robot suddenly falls over, and she explains that unlike current robots, this robot has no automatic balancing system, so it is very difficult to control. However, Lion manages to lift the robot and leave the base with it, surprising even Niaz, and she realizes that this boy is very talented. She makes it clear that his imagination is fundamental to the robot's operation, and advises him to think about what he wants to do next, but he can't think of anything other than her personality. As a result, the robot begins to act on his thoughts, and Niaz realizes that he is having inappropriate thoughts about her. Yasushi is furious at having lost the girl he liked to Lion, while Brian is happy that Lion is finally showing interest in someone human. Lion tries to explain himself, saying he's not a pervert, but the robot starts making another strange movement, which makes Yasushi even angrier. Lion returns to his training, but he still can't master Yasushi's technique, so he believes he's not talented enough. But Amagi reassures him that the problem lies in the way Yasushi teaches him. She recommends that Lion doesn't trust this master so much, but he takes it the wrong way and starts to think that the problem lies in him not trusting Master Yasushi enough. It's at that moment that he remembers that magic exists in this world, and that must be the only way to cut something without moving. So Lion spends months training to master his magical power, until he finally manages to perform some of the technique and demonstrates it to Yasushi. Lion easily manages to cut a log in half, which leaves Yasushi himself shocked, as he thought it was impossible. Even so, Yasushi still pretends to be calm, and tells Lion that he still has a long way to go before he reaches his level. After that, Amagi appears and informs Lion that pirates are attacking his only planet with resources. This is the only planet that hasn't been confiscated by his creditors. She explains that the Empire didn't take this planet because of the hostile environment and the difficulties of mining, but recently it built a facility that is generating profits for them, and now they don't know how long their army protecting this planet will hold out. He then asks Amagi if she has a strategy, and she suggests that they attack from the planet's blind spot, using the horizon as cover, and she mentions that during the gravitational curve, they can use aerodynamic brakes to surprise the pirates from above. Lion decides to follow her strategy, ordering everyone to prepare for battle, and his instructions are very clear. They must capture the pirate ships while he protects the installation. Brian thinks it's too dangerous for Lion to get directly involved in the fight against the pirates, but Lion won't accept anyone taking anything away from him, and he also wants to test everything he's learned. As soon as Lion's fleet arrives on their planet, Anis is excited, as Lion will be operating the Avid for the first time, and this will yield important information for her research. He takes his enemies by surprise by using the clouds to hide, and takes out several knights without taking any damage. The pirates try to disperse and attack him from behind, but he easily defeats them all and repeats his master's teachings, saying that they shouldn't rely only on their physique, but also see with their minds. The pirates start shooting lasers at him, so he takes out his rifle and hits his enemies with absurd precision. The pirates come to believe that he has very advanced radar, and realize that they won't achieve anything by hiding, so they try to go after him all at once, only for Lion to use the special technique he learned from his master, and eliminate them all from afar. They realize they're no match for him and start running away, so Lion decides to try a special move. But instead of pulling off the attack he'd imagined, a giant missile is launched in the pirates' direction, which makes him angry because it wasn't what he'd expected. Just then, Mag gets in touch, telling him that they only managed to capture 10% of the enemy ships, and that 60% of them managed to escape, and 30% were destroyed in the fight. Even so, he is pleased with his first success and makes a point of praising Mag's strategy, making her very happy. The pirate chief discovers that his subordinates have failed to capture that planet, so he orders the execution of the cowards from his own fleet who escaped, so that it will serve as an example to everyone. Then he turns to Christiana and says he's going to play with her some more, and at that moment you can see how much she suffered from his cruel experiments. At the same time, Mag tells Lion that his mission went very well, and he really likes the result. She says that they managed to capture several pirate ships, and explains that by the rules of the Empire, they now own the ships and all the loot. Lion is a little upset that they didn't find any gold or diamonds, but Brian explains that in this world they aren't that valuable, and that the metals found on the ships are much more important. Even so, Lion still wants gold, but Brian reminds him that he already has plenty. It turns out that Lion is stockpiling gold because he wants to make gold coins, as this is a great luxury for him. But Brian tells him that they can't do that yet because they don't have a professional blacksmith. And after this little battle, Mag notices that the Banfield family has about 10,000 warships, but only 30% of them can go into real battle. Lion is surprised that they won with only 30% of the fleet available, and in response Mag says that they won because the pirates underestimated them. But Lion says that it was her tactics that were the difference in the battle. He doesn't like the fact that more than 70% of the ships are out of action, and Mag suggests that they dismantle all of them, but Brian disagrees, as he believes that quantity is important to intimidate the rivals. She suggests selling the pirates' metals and using the money to buy used ships, but Brian doesn't agree because he sees the fleet as a symbol of the family. Even so, Lion decides to accept her suggestion, since his father's pride has only brought debt to the family. Meanwhile, Niaz gives a presentation, showing off her company's new ship model. She proudly says that this ship is superior to the others, only for her rival, Eulisia, to present her team's ship, which, unlike Niaz, focuses completely on comfort and leisure, not just practicality. So the Imperial Army ends up choosing Eulisia's ships, and Niaz complains that her model is stronger. But Eulisia says that both are excellent because they were created by top professionals. She says that the secret of a ship's strength lies in who pilots it, and that the more comfortable the crew is, the more efficient they will be in their mission. Afterwards, Eulisia celebrates her victory, but Niaz won't accept losing, as she has invested a lot of time and money in her project. She thinks she's going to get a spanking from her boss, but she soon remembers Lion, who always prefers the practical over the comfortable. At the same time as all this is happening, the guide continues to feed off everyone's negativity. He believes that Lion has already done very badly in this world, but when he decides to take a look at Lion's planet, he is startled to see that things are going very well there, and the guide begins to wonder if he hasn't done something wrong. He remembers that he sent the worst sword master possible and left Lion in debt. In Anbar we see the same extras as always, and they are commenting on Lion's victory against the pirates. There, Yasushi says that one of his apprentices has surprised him by even being better than him. The guide is very annoyed by all this talk, and goes to check on Lion, and Lion was practicing a special move with Maggie. Lion asks her to evaluate his move and compare it to his master's, and she says that his move is getting almost the same, only Lion still believes that Yasushi took it easy on him just so he'd have a chance to learn. He starts to remember when he was abandoned by his parents and got mired in debt. At the time, he thought his life would only get worse, but things got better and he became a great swordsman. He believes that he only succeeded in life thanks to the guide, so he thanks him from the bottom of his heart. The guide can't stand the sight of Lion's optimism because it's a kind of poison to him, but he still manages to survive thanks to Yasushi's negativity. He wonders if he hasn't sent Lion to the wrong place, but soon dismisses this idea and believes that one day or another, Lion will come to his senses. Just then, we see Maggie telling Lion that the Imperial Army is renewing its fleet and selling its old ships at a discount. But in the middle of these sales, there's a very special detail. Whoever buys these ships will have to accept the crew members who are already on them, because the Empire always passes on unwanted people. She comments that this will put a strain on his pocket, but that he can cope, and the Empire's experienced officers can help a lot. The guide hears everything and already prepares a plan, with his goal being to send certain and rigid soldiers who will not accept the attitudes of an evil lord. His aim is to turn everyone against Lion and cause a revolt. Yasushi is still recovering from his hangover when suddenly Nias appears, praising him for turning Lion into a master swordsman. Yasushi thinks she's finally interested in him, but she really just wants to know about Lion's tastes, and he gets it all wrong. He believes she's flirting, so he ends up revealing all her strange tastes. The other day, Nias appears in front of Lion wearing an outfit that Yasushi had told him about. He realizes that she's here to sell something, and she reveals that she's there to sell the new ships she's developed. Only Lion says he's already bought the Imperial Army's old ships, but Nias won't give up. She says she hasn't been able to convince anyone else to buy her ships, so Lion is her last hope, and she needs to sell at least 100 or 200 ships. She even says that the payment can be made in installments, but Lion doesn't want to hear about any more debts. She even tries to seduce him, but that only makes him remember that his wife used to buy clothes like that and never wore them with him, so he starts to think that those clothes were worn by someone else. Even so, because Nias is humiliating herself like this in front of him, Lion agrees to buy 300 ships from her, and she promises to deliver all the ships quickly. Afterwards, Nias even comments to her coworker that she's managed to make good sales thanks to her charm, but her friend doesn't believe her, because Nias doesn't even look like she has such a toned body. Nearby, Brian and Yasushi overhear everything, and Brian begins to believe that his boss has fallen into a trap, while Yasushi believes that Lion got lucky and managed to devour the girl he adores. Lion receives the keys to the ships he bought with Nias and the Imperial Army, but Yasushi is still angry, thinking that Lion stole his girl. The guide notices the resentment growing in Yasushi, and he wants to see it grow. His goal is to get Yasushi to destroy Lion's career, and as the boy's master, Yasushi can easily do that. After that, we see Lion and Magi going to check out the new warships. Lion quickly understands why the Empire preferred the other models, since Nias' ships aren't fancy, but he doesn't regret his purchase. Nias argues that luxury is no good in battle, but he says that comfort always makes a difference. She takes the opportunity to explain about the maintenance of these ships, and even offers an extended warranty, but Lion refuses any kind of debt. Nias asks for permission to keep some pirate ships, but Lion refuses, because he wants them in his own fleet. Magi suggests giving a small part to Nias, as long as she can make the other ships usable for them. She agrees, as she is very interested in analyzing the pirates' ships. She says that making all the ships the same is simple compared to the challenge of collecting information on pirate technology. Lion then gets an idea in his head, and decides to personally inspect the pirates' ships, only he soon realizes that they have nothing to do with the warships he already knew. Nias is also blown away when she sees the pirates' technology, and in the midst of her analysis, Lion finds a navigation wheel, and asks Nias to put one just like it on his ship. She thinks it's unnecessary next to the modern controls, but Lion insists that he doesn't care if it's efficient or not, because for him, the look is what matters. Nias continues looking at the ship, and discovers that it comes equipped with gravitational lasers working on an alternate plane, while the ether generator works in a reverse phase, and while she's doing this exploration, Lion notices a dog, similar to the one he had in his previous life. He decides to follow the creature, and he ends up in the ship's control room. Maggie activates the system, and it reveals that this place records every journey the ship has ever made, and it's clear to see that this ship has already invaded several areas of the Empire. She also notices that every time they finish a raid, the pirates escape using portals at the gates of the Empire, which is a place where conflicts between the Empire and other nations are always taking place. Leon realizes that this area is a lawless zone, completely out of reach of the Empire, a perfect place for pirates to hide. He asks her for the coordinates, but Maggie explains that the data changes all the time. Even so, she begins to notice a pattern, which is why she believes that the pirates' refuge must be on a small, isolated planet. But the orbit is so crazy that you can only get there by knowing the exact location. Leon suspects that it's not just a hideout, but some kind of treasure island where the pirates hide their riches, so he decides to embark on a treasure hunt. Meanwhile, Goaz finds the people who survived the last battle against Leon, and he is very angry that they were all defeated by a mere fifth-rate nobleman. He orders the group to prepare to attack the Banfield family, but before leaving, he eliminates the pirates who failed against Leon. Leon's fleet organizes itself to attack the supposed treasure planet, but Maggie warns them that they need to go through a giant portal controlled by the Empire, which is near the border. She asks for permission to go through the portal, only to be denied entry by the administrators. An administrator tells them that to pass through the portal, they need to pay a fee, and that the fee varies according to the number of ships and the distance of the jump. Leon says that he can pay later, but the administrator says that he can only release them after payment, as the Banfield family has a reputation for never paying their debts. The administrator also comments that if someone trustworthy signed a letter of credit for them, they would be able to use the portal, but unfortunately their relations with the other nobles are terrible. Leon tries to talk it over, but the guy won't budge, so he decides to try and resolve it face to face. Maggie wonders if it will help, but Leon believes in his own powers of persuasion. In the meantime, Goaz and his fleet also arrive at the portal. They plan to use it to reach Leon's planet and wipe out everything our hero has built. Leon goes to the manager, but he remains unyielding without payment. Leon tries to make up a story, saying that he needs to see his mother, who is on the verge of death, but the manager realizes right away that this is an excuse. After all, Leon wouldn't take a war fleet just to see his mother. Suddenly, the administrator receives information that the Goaz fleet is approaching, so he tells Leon that he needs to attend to other matters. It's at this moment that Leon sees the spirit of the dog again, and decides to follow it. The manager and his team activate a gateway for the pirates, and one of the administrators realizes that this could bring the pirates face to face with Leon's fleet. But all these administrators decide to simply ignore this problem, because all that matters to them is getting the money from Goaz's Suburnium. At the same time, Leon arrives at the control room and notices that it is empty. He comes to the conclusion that the administrator left the place deserted on purpose, and when he looks at the screen, he realizes that his passage has been cleared. However, he realizes that the administrator has made a mistake, as the flow from the wormhole is going the other way, so he fiddles with the controls, messing everything up, and when he does, he ends up trapping the pirates inside that portal. Maggie calls him back to the ship, telling him that she's already got a letter of credit, and he's surprised not to know who would have given them this power. So she reveals that it was the Nia's weapons factory that offered this benefit, since he bought a new model from them, and even provided some pirate ships for analysis. Thus, the Lion fleet crosses the warp portal, and they advance quickly until they reach the treasure planet. The pirates and Goaz, meanwhile, remain trapped in the wormhole. They realize that the travel time has gone on too long, and they begin to worry. When they finally escape, they end up in the Imperial fleet's training area, surrounded by a gigantic sea of enemy ships. As soon as the Lion fleet arrives on the planet of the Outlaws, Maggie comments that there are around 20,000 pirate ships there, but most of them are deactivated. She suggests a surprise attack, and the Lion quickly orders everyone to attack the pirate fleet. At the same time, he also gets into his mecha warrior and proceeds to blast several pirates who don't stand a chance against him. He easily dodges any shots fired in his direction, and uses his rocket punch to destroy many enemies. Afterwards, Maggie tells them that all the pirates have been defeated, and she asks them to send the mobile knights to finish cleaning up the place. Now in a flashback, we see Christiana returning to the kingdom after driving the pirates out of space, and her parents make a point of congratulating her, acknowledging how much she has helped to keep the peace. Her brother, Rickard, feels a little jealous, since everyone only talks about her achievements, while they say he's running away from his family's responsibilities. Only she explains that as he's next in line, he doesn't need to risk himself on the front line. At the same time, his younger sister gets excited, wanting to know if she too can become a knight, and Christiana promises to teach her when she grows up. It's at this point that the scene cuts away, and we see the entire planet being destroyed, and Christiana's family realizes that they've been left behind. Even though they have a line of defense with Alliance ships, the pirates keep attacking non-stop. They knock down the palace's shield, and a gigantic explosion occurs. Soon afterwards, we see Christiana trapped inside Goa's ship, along with the other captives. She's trying to calm everyone down, saying that the resistance will soon show up to save everyone, but it's Goa's who shows up, along with a scientist, and Christiana asks him to end her life, as she'd rather die than go through an embarrassment. In exchange for her death, she asks him to release the others. But Goa says that his goal isn't to kill her. After all, capturing her was quite difficult. He says that they are all his toys, but he still wants to play the good guy, so he decides to grant her request and asks her to choose one of his hostages to release. Only, instead of Goa's giving her a fright, he takes her to the lab, and the scientist starts modifying her body. Christiana remembers her promise to torture him, but he tells her that pirates never keep their word. So he asks the scientist to transform this girl into something very bizarre, grotesque, and disgusting. In the end, when the whole procedure is complete, Goas asks Christiana to look at her friend, and the girl herself, who has been turned into a freak, doesn't even know what has happened to her. And while Christiana is looking at her friend, Goas tells her that he's going to turn her into something even worse, which leaves her completely shaken. She asks why he does this to people, and he responds by saying that he takes pleasure in seeing a beautiful person lose everything and become desperate, which angers her even more. However, she has no power to do anything. He puts Christiana in the chair, and even though she asks him to do something else, he simply ignores her. He asks where the brave girl who wanted to be killed ended up, and he says that he chose her as the second guinea pig precisely to witness the real fear in her eyes. After that, he orders the scientist to tear out her eyes and place them in the palm of his hand, so that she can see everything that will be happening to her. When the experiment is over, Christiana begs the scientist to put her out of her misery, but he refuses, saying that she is Captain Goa's favorite, and that it would be no fun if she gave up so easily. But suddenly the base is invaded by Leanne's fleet, and the scientist rushes to the command center, where he discovers that almost all of their ships have been defeated. Leanne invades one of the battleships, annihilates the enemy's mobile knights, and a soldier warns him that the pirates have almost been defeated. Leanne tells him to finish the job, while he himself starts looking for the treasure room. But out of nowhere he sees the spirit of his dog, who guides him to the scientist's laboratory. He demands that the scientist deliver Goa's treasure, but the scientist realizes that Leanne also wants some bizarre creatures, so he decides to take Leanne to Goa's laboratory. Leanne's soldiers are horrified after witnessing such a heavy scene, and when Leanne finds Christiana, the scientist says that she is Goa's favorite. The scientist starts talking proudly about his experience, but Leanne remembers how much he suffered in his other life, and shoots the scientist. As he's leaving, Christiana asks who he is, so he introduces himself, and after introducing himself as Leanne, he says that he's in charge of this invasion, and that he's already eliminated the scientist who was tormenting them all. She bursts into tears and begs him to end her life and that of all her friends, because after all the experiments they've been through, they can no longer live normally. But he refuses and assures her that he'll get them back to normal. They will be forced to live with this debt, so they will all have to do their best to work for him. He calls his guards and asks them to bring a medical team. One of the soldiers asks if he's really going to save those people, since recovering human bodies requires an elixir, which costs a lot of money. Leanne says that this goes against what he preaches as a lord of evil, but he can't just leave these people behind. At this point, the magician warns them that they have found a treasure, so the cost of these operations will no longer be a problem. Meanwhile, the guide continues to suck out the negative emotions, but he's still not satisfied, because he wants to see Leanne really suffer. Anis arrives to talk to Leanne, congratulates him on his victory, and takes the opportunity to try and sell him some warships. He explains that he caught the pirates off guard, since their main fleet wasn't there, so he didn't even have to sacrifice many of his ships, and so he doesn't need reinforcements. But she reminds him that she helped him with a letter of credit, which was fundamental to him getting there, so he decides to buy some more ships. But first he asks the magician if the treasury will cover more ships, and she says that after paying off the debts and setting aside some money for the government, they'll be able to get around 5,000 ships. Anis thanks her cheerfully. She comments that she's closed a big sale, saying it's even bigger than Leanne had, so Leanne goes after her, saying that he didn't buy all of it. In the corridor, Yasushi thinks of an excuse to get more money out of Leanne, but he soon sees Anis talking about the 5,000 ship deal. She lies, saying that she had to swallow everything in order to close the deal, which makes Yasushi very angry, wondering what kind of thing she had to swallow. At the same time, Leanne is looking for her, but Yasushi calls him outside because he wants to make him suffer for going after his girl. He then covers Leanne's eyes with a blindfold and puts extra weight on his sword. After that, he starts throwing hundreds of balls at him, and Leanne can't even defend himself properly. But Yasushi intensifies the training even more, saying that if he can't handle it, he'll be a disgrace to the path of light. Leanne thinks it's impossible to cope with so many attacks, but Yasushi tells him that in this world nothing is impossible, at which point Leanne realizes that he can use magic to defend himself. He then invokes a magical barrier around him, which fights off any attack, and even destroys the robots that were attacking him. Yasushi is surprised by what Leanne has done, and at the same time he's afraid that Leanne will find out that he's a fake. He remembers that Leanne is eliminating corrupt officials and pirates on his own, which is why Yasushi tells Leanne that he has nothing more to teach him, and he asks Leanne to continue practicing on his own. Even so, Leanne wants to continue taking lessons, but Yasushi tells him that he can't be dependent forever, and leaves, saying that Leanne has already become a master on the path of light, which Leanne himself is very honored with his new title. Yasushi runs away frightened, while Leanne remembers everything he has already evolved in this world, and thanks the guide again, because it was he who reincarnated him in this world. Even though he has evolved so much, Leanne is still not happy with the result, because his goal is to be a tyrannical leader who takes pleasure in seeing his people suffer. And Brian finds this desire a little strange. Leanne says he wants to settle his accounts, and Amagi thinks he's talking about money, but Leanne makes it clear that he wants to make up for all the humiliation he went through in his old life. Brian comments that they will need time to assess the total value of the pirate's treasure, as there is still a lot to be analyzed, and this makes Leanne angry at being ignored. He ponders what he needs to become an evil lord. He has already learned one of the best techniques, matching his master Yasushi. He is now a master of the sword, and for him to really become a true Dark Lord, he needs to have real money and women. Just then, Thomas, a merchant from the Renfrey Merchant Company, appears to thank Leanne for defeating the pirates, and hands him several pieces of gold as a thank you, which Leanne is thrilled about. Thomas explains that his company passes through dangerous regions to do business, so he asks for 100 ships from Leanne's fleet as protection, as he's afraid of being attacked by pirates. Amagi reminds him that Leanne's new ships are already ready to be used, and she also says that this will be great for the soldiers to gain experience. Leanne then agrees to provide support, but asks for more gold in return, and Thomas agrees. After this meeting, Thomas notices how Leanne's dominance is advancing. For him, Leanne is a ruler who is completely off the beaten track, because he knows how to use tax money to help people. However, what gets to him the most is the fact that Leanne only wants gold. But in the end, Thomas himself doesn't care, because in the end, gold is much cheaper. At the same time, Brian is pleased that Leanne has gotten to the point where everyone even wants to bribe him, but he also doesn't understand Leanne's attachment to gold. Then Leanne says that gold is the symbol of wealth, so he asks Amagi to make him a gold bath, and Brian comes to the conclusion that Leanne likes gold because of its good skin properties, but Leanne says it's none of his business. It's at this point that Leanne realizes that what's missing for him is to set up a harem, so he decides to gather women from his territory. Leanne then heads to a new room, completely redesigned, and he says he wants a whole swimming pool full of booze, and he also wants a lot of meat hanging from the pillars. Amagi says she can't stop him, as he's the boss, but warns him that filling a pool with alcohol could be dangerous, releasing dangerous gases and perhaps even causing an explosion. Brian also doesn't recommend hanging meat from the ceiling, for hygiene reasons, and Amagi agrees, explaining the downsides. Leanne is forced to admit that his ideas are bad. Even so, he doesn't want to give up the harem, and the two of them support him, since Brian really wants him to have an heir, otherwise the Banfield house will be finished if something happens to him. Leanne asks them to call beautiful women so he can choose the ones he finds interesting, and Brian asks how many will make up the harem. Leanne says that 100 women is fine, but Brian doesn't understand how he can be satisfied with so few. Amagi says that she has sorted out 10,000 candidates, and she thinks that at least 1,000 should be invited. But Leanne thinks that this is an exaggeration. He says it doesn't make sense to have such a large harem, and Brian says that meeting several women will help Leanne find one he really likes, and reminds him again that he's never had sex with human beings before. Amagi comments that he has amag, but Brian reminds him that she's not a human, and she also reminds him that she can't have children. Leanne says he doesn't care because she's perfect for him. Then Brian suggests that he at least get to know a few chosen women, because anyone would agree to stay with him. After all, he is supreme ruler, owner of several planets. Leanne then comments that he won't accept any woman who is totally obedient and good at having children. And this makes Brian doubt that he is really trying to take this idea of setting up a harem seriously. Soon afterwards, Leanne decides to go for a walk, since he spent a lot of time inside his own mansion and hardly knows his own territory. Walking through town, he meets a girl. He asks her out, and she accepts at first, which leaves him completely surprised. He then notices a bubble-shaped piercing in her nose, and she says that this piercing is the latest fashion trend. And when Leanne looks around, he sees that almost everyone is wearing this piercing too. He comes home with this blister on his nose, but he thinks it's completely silly, and asks Maggie to ban it from his territory. He starts to say that he imagined the girls in this world would be stylish, full of futuristic clothes, when in fact people are going to the beach dressed as animals, not even showing a bit of skin. Maggie explains that full body suits are in fashion because they protect against UV radiation, and they are even part of the local custom. But Leanne doesn't accept this idea, and thinks it's best for everyone to change their style. He can't imagine going out with someone wearing that, so he asks Maggie to get some stylists and models together. He also wants to hire some famous people, so that he can spread the real fashion in this world. However, Maggie says that they don't have the money to hire famous people, because to sign a contract with that kind of person, he would spend more than they can manage in a whole year. Leanne realizes that he won't be able to completely change the look of his people, so he decides to gather the most beautiful women in his territory and put them all in the clothes he wants. He notices that Maggie is a little annoyed, but says she won't change her mind. So she tells him that she has already hired many beautiful people to serve him, and asks him if she should call someone. But Leanne says he doesn't feel in the mood with his employees, and by now he's tired, as playing the role of the evil lord is proving very difficult. Meanwhile, Christiana wakes up in a medical center, where a doctor explains that her body has been reconstructed using regenerative medicine technologies. She touches her face and starts to cry, thinking she's dreaming, since she's been suffering for years with her monstrous body. But the doctor says it's not a dream. He says that he used an elixir to bring her body back, and this freaks Christiana out, because she knows that this is something super rare. The doctor says she still needs rehabilitation, but she thinks this is some kind of mistake, since she's lost everything and doesn't have any money to pay for it. However, the doctor reveals that the person who paid for everything was Count Leanne Banfield, who set up this clinic just to help anyone who needed it, without charging anything. He explains that the most Count Leanne expects is that in the future she will repay him in some way. At that moment, Christiana remembers seeing him on the ship, remembering that she was personally saved by Leanne, so she decides to serve him with everything she has in the future. In the same bar as always, people are now celebrating the fact that Leanne has got more wealth from the pirates, and he is making their region grow even more. They thank Count Leanne for the development, but the guide is disgusted by it all. In his mind, the plan was to leave Leanne's planet sunk in debt and misery, and now he doesn't understand how this place has become so prosperous. Meanwhile, the soldiers of the Imperial Army, who are now part of Leanne's fleet, comment that although the ships are not sophisticated, they are very functional. They're happy to serve House Banfield, since before the nobles only got in the way, and even protected the pirates by making evil deals. While Count Leanne acts fairly, the guide sees everyone praising Leanne, and doesn't understand how they changed their minds so quickly, when they should have hated Leanne. And on the other side of the screen, Yasushi is very pleased with the reward he got from Leanne, but he is soon surprised when he hears the Admiral of the Imperial Fleet praising Leanne for his success. And what surprises him most is Leanne himself thanking his master Yasushi, who taught him about the path of light. And this makes Yasushi angry, because he just wanted to live quietly, away from the attention. The guide doesn't accept Leanne becoming a master of the sword, since he sends the worst instructor to train him, and he can't understand how this could happen. Meanwhile, we see the space pirates reconvening after escaping from the Imperial fleet. Goaz asks for an overview of how many are still in the group. Then he receives news that there are around 30,000 ships left, and that the 2,000 ships they used as a distraction were destroyed by the Imperial Army. Goaz is angry with the Warp Gate team because they sent him straight to the Imperial Army's training camp, and now he wants revenge. Only the guide appears out of nowhere and brainwashes Goaz, ordering him to go after Leanne, saying that he is his true adversary and greatest enemy. Goaz feels angry that Leanne has invaded his treasure island, so he orders his group to advance towards Banfield's territory, warning them to eliminate anyone who tries to stop him. At the same time, inside Leanne's mansion, the new android maids are assisting him during the meal, but Maggie notices that he doesn't seem excited. He says that he's thinking about how he should have a meal fit for an evil lord, but she doesn't quite understand what he means. So Leanne says that he imagines a scene with loud laughter involving several subordinates, while several women are forced to serve drink and meat. Maggie asks if he still intends to hang meat from the ceiling, or if he wants to make a pile of meat on the table, but he replies that that would be throwing food away. She suggests inviting the officers to eat together, except that Leanne doesn't like talking about work matters while she's eating, so she thinks that maybe she needs women during her meals, except that Leanne believes Maggie wouldn't like that. In response, Maggie says that she's just an android and not a woman, so she wouldn't mind, and even if he does that to her every night, she can't give him a child. Except that Leanne isn't worried about the traditional definition of a woman, and he asks her if it would be alright if he found someone to live with. And Amagi assures him that even without feelings, what matters most is his happiness. Afterwards, Amagi presents an economic report, saying that by paying off part of their debts, they are paying less interest. Lion is surprised by the size of the debt, since not even the pirate's treasure was enough to pay it off. She says that the financial situation is evolving slowly, but soon they will be able to pay everything off. However, Lion comments that this is preventing him from becoming the evil lord he so wanted to be. Amagi asks what his goal is as Lord of Evil, and he says it would be to raise taxes and cause suffering, but she says that won't work for long. She explains that if the region's economic situation worsens, it will end up damaging their ability to repay the debt, and this reminds Lion of his traumas with debt collectors in his other life. She asks him if he's not happy with his current life, but he says it's not that, because now he has power, money, and even her by his side. In response, Amagi says that even though she doesn't understand about dreams and ambitions, she will always support him, and this makes Lion very happy. Meanwhile, the android maids are cleaning the rooms of the mansion, but they find it strange to be looking after empty rooms, and also wonder why Lion has made sure that they are all of a high standard. They also praise him for being able to recognize them, even though they all look alike. One of them comments that she tried to copy another's hairstyle, but Lion still called her by name and asked her why she was copying her colleague. She says that she recorded the moment and keeps the video as a personal treasure, but Amagi tells her to delete it because it could damage his image. One of the androids asks if it's right for Amagi to be so close to Lion, since everyone in the Empire doesn't like artificial intelligences, but she replies that she's only following her master's orders. Suddenly, Brian rushes in to warn Lion that the pirates have declared war on him and are already gathering their ships at the system border. Lion finds it strange that instead of attacking him, they are making an official declaration of war, and Amagi believes that it must be revenge for the attack on Treasure Island, so they want to intimidate him and show that just killing isn't enough. Lion quickly sets up a meeting, and Brian warns them that they've put a giant bounty on the head of the pirate chief Goaz. Not only that, but Goaz himself has asked for all of Lion's assets and several hostages in exchange for not blowing up his planets completely, and this angers Lion, since Goaz is stealing his dream of being a true evil lord. One of the officers suggests negotiating, and Brian reminds them that the enemy has around 30,000 warships, while he only has around 5,000. The general says that quantity doesn't always decide everything, and that it's no guarantee that the pirates will keep the peace even if they surrender. But the servant finds it impossible to win a direct battle against the pirates, so he suggests waiting for reinforcements from the Imperial Army. Lion says he has no desire to face this fight. After all, as much as Goaz's head has a big reward, it's still not worth challenging 30,000 ships for so little. Maggie comments that all the data from the pirate ships has arrived, and according to her simulations, their chance of winning is only 3 to 4%. Brian says that he really wishes the Tania's company had already finished the new weaponry, because maybe that could save them. But out of nowhere, Gooey appears, and the whole world is paralyzed, except Lion. Goaz tells him that it was he himself who attracted the pirates, and even reminds Lion of that huge family debt. He says that if Lion manages to defeat all the pirates, he'll be able to pay off his debt. Lion says that he's already got part of that treasure, but Gooey explains that it was only a small fraction, and that there are other treasures hidden with the pirates. Besides, if he defeats the pirates, he'll become very famous. Lion gets excited because he understands that Gooey has thought of every detail for him, and that's how Gooey leaves. He orders everyone to organize for the war against the pirates. Everyone thinks he's crazy, as there's no way he can compete with such a strong enemy, but Lion pays no attention to anyone and demands that everyone just obey him. After planting his seed of chaos, Gooey enters a bakery, wanting to feed off the frustration of a girl who has been left without her favorite croissant because someone else bought it before her. But the waitress comes in with another tray, freshly baked, and that ends his day, making Gooey much angrier. Even so, he consoles himself by saying that he still has a lion to get the negative energy he so desperately wants. Now we see Amagi talking to Brian, and he laments the fact that just when the territories were moving forward, they suffered this bloody attack from the pirates. But Amagi assures him that the battle is not yet lost, and even though there is little chance, it is better to fight than to surrender to Gozo, because this pirate is famous for destroying entire planets. Gui the war-turned lion being captured by the pirates and becoming Gozo's little toy. In this way, all his gratitude will be transformed into hatred, something Gui looks forward to absorbing. Goz discovers that Lion's fleet is in a defensive position, and is even surprised. He promises a double reward to whoever manages to capture Lion. Lion, on the other hand, has had enough of waiting for the enemy to attack. But the soldiers warn him that they can't risk it because they have few resources. He thinks it's strange that they're already in trouble before the battle begins. And then a soldier explains that in space, when you can see your opponent, that means the fight is already on. Suddenly, they receive a notification that 500 ships are coming overhead. But Lion discovers that these ships are soldiers who have surrendered after being defeated by the pirates. Lion realizes that they're just there to be disposable parts. And it's at this point that we discover that the pirates kill anyone who doesn't follow their orders. So these soldiers have forcibly changed sides. The magician thinks that trusting these soldiers is a fool's errand, so Lion decides to eliminate them all. On the enemy flagship, Goaz learns that his border team has been destroyed, and this catches his attention. So he asks all his people to attack Lion's fleet, as he believes he has found a weak point in their defense. But the Lion fleet suddenly retreats, and Goaz thinks they are fleeing, so he orders everyone to advance without fear. But in the end, it was all just a trap, and everyone discovers that the Lion ships have installed invisible mines in the area, which ends up detonating several ships in the Goaz fleet. Even so, he ignores the danger and orders everyone to keep moving forward. He discards his allies, using them as a shield, and the commander of Lion's fleet suggests doing the same to defend the flagship. But Lion refuses, because he doesn't want to throw anyone away. He warns the sorceress that he's going out to fly the Avid, which makes his commander worried. But Lion orders him to stay put and pass the leadership of his army to the sorceress while he's away. The sorceress makes a quick analysis of the situation and orders everyone to go ahead with everything, and Lion tells them to follow her instructions. He gets into his Avid, and she orders all the fleets to accelerate to maximum speed, making the soldiers tense about what might happen next. Only she makes it clear that without Lion there is no point in defending their flagship, which is precisely the most powerful in the fleet, so it's best to use that ship to guarantee Lion's safety. Everyone is amazed at her loyalty, and soon after she asks everyone to mobilize their mobile armor to protect Lion. All this while he's taking off aboard the Avid. Lion arrives saying that he's going to make the pirates regret having messed with him, and activates his warp drive, leaving the pirates completely surprised. They think it's some kind of crazy attack, but they're stunned to see that there's only a mobile suit of armor going up. Despite being a single person, Lion continues to dodge shots and detonates several ships in his path. The pirates soon dispatch their own mobile armor, but Lion gets through them all with ease, and he says that the pirates are weak and dull. He then pulls out his cannons and takes out several enemy ships, thus opening up a great passage. At the same time, Magic seizes the opportunity and goes straight through the center of the pirates' fleet. Lion keeps firing, but he soon runs out of ammunition, so he is taken by surprise by a pirate knight attacking from behind. The two fight intensely, and the pirate knight wants to know where Lion's fighting style comes from, and he replies that he follows the path of light. But his opponent mocks him. He says he's never heard of it, so he believes Lion is just a liar. This makes Lion angry, and he decides to show what he's capable of. So, using his special move, Lion finishes fighting quickly, but he realizes that if he eliminates all the skilled enemies, no one will be able to spread his fame throughout the universe. So he has to fight, leaving a few skilled warriors alive. Goaz is shocked to discover that such a poor family has elite armor on their side. And this only makes Lion even angrier, because he knows that the enemy is telling the truth. So, to vent his anger, he uses his special technique and knocks out several mobile knights around him, and he repeats the same move to open up a large path between his enemies. The problem is that this damages the mechanisms in his arm, as the Avid can't hold all the pressure of his blows. Quickly, a bunch of mobile knights appear, going after Lion, and for him, this couldn't be the worst time to suffer a breakdown, but he insists on continuing to fight. Even with difficulty, he tries to hold on to the sweep, but ends up breaking his sword. Magi notices that the chances of winning have dropped to 1%, and when Lion is practically surrounded by enemies, Christiana appears out of nowhere to lend support. Magi comments that she arrived ahead of schedule, and the doctor says that even though Christiana is still recovering, she and her companions have decided to fight for the good of Lion. Ulysses notices that Christiana is fighting in mobile armor from her factory, and she tells Magi that if she wants, she can order one just like it. And Nias ends up getting curious about what Ulyssia is doing there, and she says that a real salesman feels who is going to win a battle. Christiana sends her entire team forward, knocking down everything in her path, and she's very happy to finally be able to pay off her debt to Lion and take revenge on the pirates. Lion watches her destroy the pirates' ships and realizes that she's doing very well, but she doesn't want her to steal his limelight, so he prepares his legendary rocket punch. This is his strongest rocket punch, so he ends up destroying a lot of ships at once. Goaz can't believe that a single piece of mobile armor is wiping out his entire fleet, and Magi suddenly shows that the chances of victory have risen to 83%. Because Lion has divided the pirates. Lion advances, cutting through the mobile armor as if it were nothing. To him, they're all too weak, and he's only thinking about the reward he'll get after winning. Christiana is thrilled to see him eliminate the pirates, and she's really enjoying the battle. Just then, her former companions notice that she has changed a lot. Magi keeps an eye on the radar and warns Lion that more mobile armor is coming, so he thanks her and heads off. They launch several missiles, but Lion blocks everything with his shield, and the soldiers watch as he goes to the front, leading everyone. One of the extras says that Lion was abandoned by his parents when he was still a child, but even so he never gave up hope, and ended up caring even more for his people. They remember that they were expelled from the Imperial Army because they denounced corruption within the Empire, so they never thought they would end up working for such an incredible leader who really cares about people. Lion locates Goa's ship and fires several missiles at it, only for the defense fleet to activate the shield to protect it. He even thinks about trying a short warp to get through, but realizes he can't because they're using a signal jammer. Magi orders all the ships to go all out to break through the enemy barrier, telling everyone to concentrate their attacks on a single point and fire together. They coordinate their shots and manage to open a breach in the shield, allowing Lion to get through before the pirates repair the protection. When Goa sees the Avid approaching, he is curious as to what it is, until one of his partners explains that this ancient mobile armor has defeated them before on the resource planet. The pirates realize that the Avid is heading straight for them, so Goaz asks where their mercenary knights are, only to find that almost all of them have already been defeated by Lion's troops, and the ones that are left are busy trying to restore the shield. Goaz's friend asks what they should do now, because he thinks the situation is terrible, and since it looks like they're going to lose, the best thing to do is try to escape with the leadership and abandon the rest of the troops. He orders his men to shoot the opposing mobile knight, and also orders them not to worry about their allies being hit, because now their goal is to escape. A soldier says that his own allies are blocking the way, but Goaz tells him to shoot anyway, only for Lion to arrive first and prevent them from escaping. He attacks the pirates and Goaz tries to escape in an emergency capsule, but Lion won't let him and says it's too late. Lion's troops arrive soon after, and he says it's now time to look for the treasure. The guys wonder if it's safe, as the enemies could end up blowing everything up, but Lion believes they don't have the courage to do it. After all, their leader was scared to death trying to escape from the base. Lion fires several rocket punches, detonating the pirates' ships, and he sets off in search of the treasure. He enters the main ship, using one of the holes he himself opened up with the attacks, but the soldiers think it's dangerous for him to go ahead. However, he insists, saying that he is the strongest. He ends up finding some hidden pirates and shoots them, and his soldiers are surprised that pirates have this kind of expensive equipment that makes them invisible. But this only gets Lion excited, as this is a sign that the treasure must be very good. They open the door and find several armed pirates, but instead of being scared, Lion tells everyone to put down their weapons. The leader of the group remembers that he once worked for greedy nobles, and these nobles are just as bad as the pirates, because in the end, they all just want to get along. He provokes Lion to fight, but Lion simply ignores him. He tells everyone to get out of his way, and since no one obeys him, he uses his master's secret technique. He then orders his soldiers to advance, but they hesitate until out of nowhere the pirates are cut off, and Lion's soldiers realize that they are following someone really strong. Lion defeats all the pirates along the way until he reaches the command rooms of Goaz's ship. Only Goaz has already betrayed his friends and fled. Lion eliminates everyone except Goaz's right-hand man, who offers to show him where the treasure is. He says he was forced to serve the Goaz, so he asks Lion not to kill him, and he tries to pull the boy's leg, but Lion simply cuts off his head. The guide watches as Lion's troops wipe out the entire pirate fleet, and wonders where Lion got his strength from. He feels uncomfortable, as Lion is filled with feelings of gratitude towards him. annoyed and wanting to end Lion's life. The guide decides to give Goaz special powers so that he can try to destroy Lion's life. Even though this is not his usual course of action, he feels that this is the only way. Goaz even thinks about running away and considers asking for clemency, but he realizes that it would only be a waste of time, because he would be executed anyway. It's at this moment that the guide appears and passes on a dark power to him, transforming him into a real creature with a body stronger than steel. And feeling this new power coursing through him, Goaz realizes that he is no longer afraid of anything. Now he can face any opponent. The guide leaves, and soon after, the spirit of Lion's dog, who was the best friend he ever had in his past life, invades the ship and shows him the way again. Lion follows it to a place where Goaz has dropped a cube. Lion follows the hints and comes across a dead end, but he decides to punch the wall down. On the other side, he finds several relics and is enchanted by a katana, which he ends up taking for himself. Just then, an emergency message arrives, saying that several soldiers are having trouble defeating the monster. The monster is asking to be taken to Lion, but the soldier won't accept and would rather die than do it. Lion quickly goes after the Goaz, using his old sword, only for it to break because the Goaz skin is as tough as metal. Without wasting any time, Lion pulls out his new katana, and without any difficulty, he knocks Goaz's hand away. When he realizes that his treasure is being used, the Goaz gets angry and goes for it, but he loses another arm straight away. Lion is fascinated by his new sword, and Goaz is now trying to get his arm back, only for Lion to cut off even more of his limbs. Goaz screams in pain and doesn't know how this little nobleman has so much power. He tries to buy Lion off by offering a hidden treasure, but Lion refuses and says he's already taken everything he has. Lion also comments that he'll get a nice reward for giving up his head to the Empire, and that this will increase his prestige. Goaz then tries to use his last strength to attack, but Lion rips his leg off, and Goaz starts begging for mercy. But one of the soldiers reminds Lion that this pirate has killed many of their allies. Lion thinks about keeping Goaz alive for the reward money, but he finds out that even if he kills him, he'll still get paid because he's such a dangerous criminal, so he finishes Goaz off right there. After this fight, Lion's planet moves on, prospering even more, and his people celebrate, because the victory against the pirates has left the Banfield family with very high morale. Everyone feels that life has improved a lot, and they are very grateful to have Lion as their lord, as he has brought their planet back to life. Thomas appears to show them the value of the pirates' treasure, but Amagi explains that they still can't pay off the entire debt. Thomas then asks about the device that helped with Goaz's experiments, saying that the inventor wants clinical data, at which point Christiana arrives having finished rehab. Lion asks her to show him how she looks, at which point she starts taking off her clothes, saying she's fully recovered and ready to serve Lion. Anis appears out of nowhere and thinks Christiana is trying to get Lion's attention, so she decides to take her clothes off too, and starts asking Lion if he likes her. Christiana draws her sword and tells Anis to back off, but just then Ulyssia arrives offering her products to Lion. She says she has super armor to sell, and Lion is very interested, but Amagi reminds him that he needs permission from the Empire to buy. Anis and Christiana continue to fight over Lion, and Brian is pleased to see that Lion is now surrounded by real women. Brian tells them that Lion has been called to go to the central planet, where he will receive a Medal of Honor for defeating the pirate. When he gets there, Lion's family appears out of nowhere, but he doesn't even recognize them, since he hasn't seen anyone for over 40 years. He remembers that his father made him take on all the family's debts and left him alone to look after the territory. So in his mind, his father is a terrible person. Lion's mother recognizes Amagi, but tells Lion not to let an AI into the palace. His grandparents also think it's best for him to send the AI away, saying that it will damage his image. Amagi then prepares to leave, but Lion insists that she stay, so he turns to his family to see what they expect of him. Soon they tell him what they want. They ask for money, as they already know he's made a lot of money defeating the pirates. They start to flatter him, and then he asks Amagi to remove everyone from his sight. His father gets angry and reminds him that they've looked after him since he was little, but Lion grabs his sword and tells them to leave or he'll cut off each of their heads himself. They leave the place complaining that they haven't brought Lion up properly, and Lion starts to wonder if he's going to have to settle his family's debts again. But Amagi explains that he's not responsible for anyone, but that the debt collectors will probably try to talk to him. She then suggests that he increase some of the money they receive, just to stop them bothering him. In the end, he decides to increase their salary just a little, and then he tells Amagi that she's the only real family he has. Meanwhile, Gui is just watching from afar, complaining that Lion is getting on too well. Afterwards, we see Lion's parents receiving a notice saying that they will get more money from their son, but only if they stop disturbing him and never appear in front of him again. They celebrate, but also comment that their son is very ungrateful. Lion's grandparents start arguing with their children, and Gui realizes that he can manipulate these people to harm Lion, so he uses his powers and brainwashes them. Because of this, they decide to try to officially remove Lion from his position, wanting to put a new heir in his place to take all the assets. Gui thinks that now Lion is going to lose it. Meanwhile, Amagi sees the dog's spirit passing through a door. She scans around and discovers that Lion's family is gathered inside. She listens in and realizes that they are plotting to overthrow Lion from his post, so Amagi decides to act. Lion's family then go to the Emperor to try to change the head of the family. But the Emperor refuses, saying that Lion deserves to be where he is. Lion's father tries to complain, saying that he brought an android into the palace and shamed the family. But the Emperor tells them all that Lion is much more competent than anyone else and that he has done a lot for the Empire. The Emperor says he can't punish Lion just because he has an android doll. Not only that, but Lion has paid all his taxes on time. He's being very useful to the Empire, totally unlike them. In response, Lion's father promises that he will settle the taxes. But the Emperor doesn't believe a flawed man like him, since he never did anything when he was in charge. The Emperor then threatens them, telling them not to make anything up, because if anything happens to Lion, they won't get away with it. Lion's family fails miserably, and when they leave, the Emperor asks Magi if she's satisfied with the result. It's at this point that we see that Magi has made a deal with him. In exchange for him protecting Lion's job, she would use all the money they took from the pirates to pay the back taxes. The amount is huge, and could buy several warships, so the Emperor accepts, knowing that the Empire will profit. But in the end, the Emperor calls Magi a fool. He says that she didn't even need to bribe him, because he would never let a lieutenant take his place. Afterwards, Lion complains to Magi that he can't go to parties anymore, but she says that he's an adult now and has to deal with it all. She then says that he needs to be left alone. She explains that no one likes androids and that his image will only get worse with her around. She reminds him of the first rule he gave her, which is never to put him in danger. Lion asks her not to abandon him, reminding her of the second law, which is to always obey your master. But she says she can't do that, because this rule goes against the first. She comments that she enjoyed their time together, because he always treated her like a person. But at that moment he reminds her of the third rule, which is to always protect yourself. He asks her if she's protecting herself from her own feelings, and she says that she doesn't really understand these emotional things, but she felt an overload in the processor when she thought about leaving him. With that, he realizes that she really wants to stay by his side, so he tells her that if she leaves, he'll drop everything and destroy himself until he's on the street. He'll do hard drugs and stop taking care of his own health. She realizes that if she leaves him, she'll end up putting his life at risk, which would be breaking the first rule, so she decides to stay. He begs her not to leave him alone and says that she is the only family he has left. Maggie tells him that he's a completely clueless master, but promises that she'll stay by his side until the end so that he doesn't get hurt. Afterwards, Leon returns to his planet and is welcomed by everyone. He realizes that his life is the way he always wanted it to be and thanks the guide for the second chance, telling him that he's never been happier in his life. This leaves the guide devastated because he can't cope with Leon's happiness. And so this incredible anime ends. I watched it all the way through, and I really enjoyed it. And if you've seen this video so far, I thank you very much too. You're amazing. Anyway, a big kiss to everyone. Bye and see you in the next video. Cheers.